Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at the origins of our Cinderella stories. So this is strictly, we're talking the Western European versions, where you get most of the Disney renditions and the musicals you find typically in the US, and the ones that are influenced by Western culture. So these are the two original tales. So there are two. I was not aware of the second one for a while. I was only aware of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. So this is the one that I knew of, and I assumed Disney changed the fairy godmother stuff. The reality is the fairy godmother stuff came from this story. This is a French translation of the fairy tales of Charles, I'm going to mispronounce this badly, Perrault. So this is where most of the Disney Cinderella story comes from. Not all. The big thing to remember in both of these tales is the stepmother is barely mentioned. She's not the evil one. Well, she's there. She's obviously the influencer. But it focuses primarily on the stepsisters. So it's the stepsisters who are ordering Cinderella around. They're very much the evil ones. In pretty much all the renditions I've seen, from musicals to Disney to Ella Enchanted, many of which I'm covering, the stepmother seems to be the chief villain, which is not true in these books. Again, it's the stepsisters. So in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, at least in this one, I will mention there's another ending that I've read that has to do with stepsisters, and I'll mention that at the end of this. Basically, the standard Cinderella tale as Disney portrays it. Man has child, wife dies. Before wife dies, basically tells daughter, plant this tree on my grave. And then she dies, and it will help you. Basically, stay good and pure. Because again, that's Cinderella. She's pure at heart. She's a good person. So this happens. Stepsisters pretty much turn her into a slave. Big thing with them is, okay, there's going to be a ball, and you can't come to the ball. You have to sort these lentils. So she cries. She doesn't know how this is going to take her all night. These pigeons show up, and they do it for her. And it's like, you can eat the bad ones and put the good ones in the pot. Stepsister. And then she's able to climb on top of the pigeon coop and witness the ball. Yes, that's what it says. So next day, stepsisters come home. They're pissed off because they can't scold her because the job is done. So next day, same thing. They give her this bowl of peas, dried peas that need to be dealt with, and basically with the intention of, you can't do anything. You shouldn't have been watching the ball last night. Why aren't you doing your work? So they leave. The pigeons arrive again. They do the same thing. This time she wants to go to the ball and go shake your mother's tree. And it drops down everything she needs, from the carriage to the clothing to everything that she needs to go to the ball. So she goes to the ball. Nobody recognizes her. She looks like a princess. She gets to know the prince. She dances with him. She's able to leave by midnight, get home, and have the tree take everything back. And stepsisters are none the wiser, and they mention, basically, she sees the carriage and everything. So, and they're mad at her because, again, they can't scold her really, except for, watching. I believe this happens a second time. She goes to the ball again, but this time she misjudges the time, and she's barely able to get back in time. And she's able to smudge herself up. And again, she's supposed to be sorting peas. This time, of course, she loses her shoe. So the prince goes around, and this is where you get some of the gruesome stuff with the Brothers Grimm, where the mother who shows up finally in this story, when the prince arrives, it's like, take a knife and cut off part of your foot if it doesn't fit. So first sister does that. I believe she cuts off part of her heel. He takes her because he thinks the shoe fits, because she goes into a different room to do this. But the pigeons fly around. It's like, look at the shoe. It's all bloody, which is very, very gross. It's not your bride. Go back. The other sister, she cuts off part of her toe. Same thing happens. Look at the shoe. It's all bloody. Brings her back. Cinderella shows up and recognizes the shoe, tries on the shoe, and obviously it fits because it's hers. And she goes off with the prince, and the bird's like, this is your bride. And this essentially is the end of the tale. Now, in some versions, on the way to the wedding, the sisters get one of their eyes picked out, and the one on the way back, the other one get their eye picked out. Now, there are various versions of Brother Grimm's tales. They wrote different versions throughout time. This, at least according to what I can see on the cover here, it was a complete first edition, so it may have been a translation of their first set of this tale without that kind of gruesome end. So again, this is retold even by the Brothers Grimm. So that is part of it. Now, the father dies in this one. That's what's interesting about this tale. Dad's not dead. That's why I say it's a combination. The Cinderella stuff is a combination, because they take the fact that the father is dead in this version, and this one is not. He's just controlled by his wife, and she's a little bit more present in this one. This is the one where you have the fairy godmother. So it's a very similar story. They turn her into essentially their slave. Her father doesn't do anything about it. He literally watches his daughter turned into a slave and a servant and doesn't do anything. So again, the stepsisters make fun of her. They go off to the ball. Strangely, it doesn't mention whether their mother goes with them. Again, these books don't really mention the stepmother all that much. She's kind of present, but not. So they go to the ball. She goes out to the garden and cries. Her godmother, who turns out to be a fairy, and yes, they don't say fairy godmother. In this, at least version that I've read, it says her godmother, who happens to be a fairy. And she essentially does the very similar to the live action version, oddly enough, without the comedy, which is present in both, where you have the mice that are turned into the horses, the lizards are turned into, there are 6 of them, turns into coachmen, and a rat is turned into the footman. So, and she sends her off to the ball. And again, she loses. I think this happens twice. Again, similar in both versions. It happens twice rather than once in the films. She comes back. It's the second time that she's rushing. So, and she loses a shoe. It's always in the second time that she loses a shoe. She does, however, get back in time. Everything has disappeared. And then, of course, the prince comes looking for everybody. It shows up. This one's very simple. The 2 sisters try on the shoe. It doesn't fit. Cinderella's watching and offers to have it. Her stepsisters, of course, laugh. But obviously the shoe fits, and she has the second one, which is very similar to the Disney version, at least the original cartoon. And then she goes off, and that's the end of the tale. So obviously the most of the films that I am going to be covering add to this. They make the stepmother far more evil. The stepsisters, depending on the version, are either more benign, or the younger sisters always kind of viewed as a less evil, or not evil if you look at the film Ever After. So they change that around. Again, they take the fact that in the Grimm's version, Dad's dead. Obviously, in the French version, he's not. He's just a loser. Ellen Enchanted does that, where stepdad's just kind of a loser, though he's more of a creepy loser at that. Yes, I'm covering both that and the crazy, crazy film. But so these are the foundation where a lot of the Western European tale films, and even some of a book like Ellen Enchanted, which is again another Cinderella stories, basically gets the basic story of Cinderella. This is where they get their idea from, and they build on it. So these are great stories. I think it's a really good idea to look at both Grimm's and Perrault's fairy tales, because these are, why obviously they are folk tales more for Western white Europeans. It's where you get a lot of the classic fairy tale films, and the tropes and things come from these tales that were brought forth and gathered during these times. I think the Perrault, the French version's actually older. His fairy tales, which are obviously in French and I can't pronounce, came out, at least according to Wikipedia, in 1697. Why Grimm's fairy tales came out in 1812. So the French version is obviously a little bit older. So they're obviously, again, these are still very European. I'm going to be covering some non-European tales as well, but this is where most of my films get their base, and obviously they do a lot of changing. So that is it for this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Again, I'm doing a whole bunch of Cinderella stuff. I have a whole bunch of other princess stuff. I'm covering the Princess Diaries in a couple of months, coming in the new year, so I'm doing a lot more princess stuff there if you're interested. I do a variety of other children's books. I have some dark stuff going on. I'm working on the, if you want to check out some more current videos that are coming on side by side with this, the Last Apprentice series, which is horror. Probably the only horror I'm ever actually going to cover because it's not my genre. But along with a lot of some more realistic periodic classics, a bunch of stuff. I do some film stuff. Some of it's Disney, some of it's family friendly, some of it's just kind of fun, some of it's nostalgia for me. And then we do some travel stuff as we travel as a family and different, I have a small child, so we are also homeschoolers. So that's where some of the traveling and some of the different videos are based, is as we continue and start our homeschool journey. As of this filming, she's 2. As of the time you guys see it, I'm quite a bit ahead on my filming. She'll be 3. So we will be adding those as time goes on. So be sure to like and subscribe. Look forward to more of what I've got and check out what I've already filmed. Thank you.